I don't know. Jeff Platt, we're live.
Let's do it live.
Let's do it live. Before we do, and hopefully no one's joined. It doesn't look like anyone's joined yet. They were probably all waiting for us to be right on time at 2 p.m. But since we're a minute behind,
1 minute late.
everybody decided, nah, these guys, we can't mess with these guys.
You know the old saying, you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, don't bother showing up. So maybe we shouldn't bother.
Luckily for us, these are recorded for posterity. They live on the internet forever. No way to get them down. So even though it doesn't look like anyone's joined us live, and I'll have to go in and find out here in just a second, leave you alone. Um, there's still a reason for us to do this. There's a chance that people will watch it after the fact.
At a minimum, recording a conversation between you and I is entertaining enough as it is.
I'll say this. It's entertaining enough to have the conversation. I'm grateful that we get to do it right now. So, that's all I need.
That's
Um,
right.
having said that, in case anybody is watching and just saying, what are these two talking about? Let me tee this thing up really quickly before I go see if I can actually monitor the live, which will have the ability for people to leave comments and hopefully questions. But what we're going to do today, we're going to have a conversation. It sounds so exciting when you say it this way. We're going to have a conversation about performance reviews and riffs.
Performance management. Yes.
Performance management,
More
correct.
so performance management than performance reviews, because performance reviews are, boy, aren't those thrilling? Yeah.
To your point, yes, I think I probably misspoke, and it is going to be about performance management. The reason we're having this conversation today, and we're actually going to do this as a debate. I'm going to be arguing in the affirmative on behalf of the company's side, so that's awesome. Everyone can just start calling me Corporate Scotty after this. But the reason for this, there was a probably pretty well known viral video recently. We're not going to name names, neither the individual or the company, but suffice it to say, a lot of people who might be watching us right now have likely seen this. I'm going to let you kind of tee up exactly the details while, like I said, I go over to the LinkedIn live and see if I can make sure I'm monitoring our comments, etc. So I'll put myself on mute so we don't get a nasty echo, and I'll leave it to you, Jeff Platt, who I should have introduced by now. Jeff Platt, who is doing talent acquisition and client development, I believe, here at KēSTA I.T. Thanks for joining me, dude.
Yes, thanks for having me. And I'll give as much context as I can. Again, Scotty and I decided against sharing the name of the individual and the name of the company, but there is a recent viral video of an account executive at a company who filmed themselves um, getting fired, I guess is the best way to put it. So as much context as possible, this person worked for a tech company. And this is a fairly big tech company, not Meta, not Amazon, not Google, but a bigger tech company. They sell software. This particular individual, because they knew some of their peers had gone through something similar, decided to record this conversation. It was a conversation they were having with this person to let them know that they were being let go. And so it was a conversation this person was having with HR, although it's debatable if it's the HR at this company or if that was outsourced. But they recorded the conversation. And in the conversation, it was supposed to be, hey, thanks for working here, but based on your performance, we have decided to let you go. And this person stopped the conversation early on and said, here's why I believe I shouldn't be let go is because of all these reasons. And the video was posted to LinkedIn, I think Twitter, maybe other social platforms, maybe TikTok. I saw it and was interested for a number of reasons, but um, I think, Scotty and I were talking about uh, different topics that we want to discuss in this forum. And when we're doing this, we could talk about some of the standard things that people talk about: interviewing tips, resume writing, recommendations, job searching recommendations, since we've both been in talent acquisition and recruiting for as long as we have been, but we thought it might be more interesting and we might get more engagement if we were to talk about some topics that are controversial, or frankly, we could take both sides of an issue, and this is one of them. I do see the side of the company, but I also see the side of the individual. So that's what we wanted to talk about is lay that out and then kind of defend both sides, and then if possible get input and reactions from people as they're listening to this or as they watch it and leave comments on LinkedIn. Do you think I set that up well, Scotty? Anything else I didn't include?
Well, as you all know, multitasking is my biggest strength. So I'm sure you nailed it because I was listening to every single word. Um,
This live
no,
brought to you by Celsius.
there you go. In all seriousness, I am having a little bit of a tough time accessing comments. So I do want to just make mention there are a handful of people joining. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We've got Jeff Platt here, the great and powerful Jeff Platt, who focuses on client relations and talent acquisition here at KēSTA I.T. We're going to be debating this topic that he just expounded upon. I didn't hear a lot of what you were saying, Jeff. I was trying to get to the comments to make sure we could monitor those. And it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that. So what I'd like to encourage people to do is if you have questions for us in real time while we're actually live, will you please send those to me via LinkedIn Messenger? Just standard messaging in LinkedIn. I'll keep my eye on those and hopefully we can get to people's comments because again, for whatever reason, I made a comment already on this post, Jeff, and I'm not seeing it. So technical difficulties, I suppose. But to your point, yes, we are going to set this up as a debate. I did catch that you feel like either one of us could argue either side of this. I drew the short straw, so I'll be arguing on behalf of the company today. And again, we're going to take this as a hypothetical, right? Even though there was a viral video that kind of inspired this topic. So yeah, if you missed anything, I missed it unfortunately, but I'm ready to jump in, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, and let me just start by saying that to Scotty's point, like I will be arguing for the individual that was let go and this person's issue or response to being let go. But I do legitimately see a side of the company. So we're going to talk more about that. But performance management in general is really hard. And part of the reason we thought this was a timely topic now is because it's happening so much. Of course, if you're on LinkedIn like Scotty and I are on a regular basis, your feed is probably full of people who are getting laid off, and we consistently hear and see riffs. And so that's one of the things I think we need to talk about is there is a difference between a layoff and a riff, a reduction in the workforce versus performance management, which should be reserved for a certain thing. And I think that's why people are so upset about this particular one is because the waters were muddied and based on my best guess, it looked like in this case, it probably should have been a riff, a layoff. And what was done was performance management. So I think that's what this person was frustrated about. I think that's what people are frustrated about. And frankly, I see this person's side on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I see the company side. And like um, I think we've given enough disclaimers. I'm just going to jump into the side of the argument where, I see the company side, because here's the thing. You may be correct in terms of how it should have been handled, given this was one of many individuals that was let go. We focus a lot on, our space. The space we occupy is technology and technical recruiting. This was a salesperson, but I think it applies to any position. There are expectations clearly set, and probably no more clearly set than in sales. Those expectations were laid out for this individual, from what I can tell. And again, we're assuming a lot here. But from what I can tell, this individual was given clear expectations. They were given what is referred to in sales as a ramp, and they had not produced. By the time it came to, the ramp had finished, they had a month of time to close a deal, or at least get a deal close enough to the end of the pipeline to feel like it was going to close. They did not do that. So to me, it makes a ton of sense. A company has every right to terminate a salesperson when they don't perform. So I think, that's what I'm arguing for in this debate.
Well, and what I would say is that I agree with you in that aspect. If you're going to go into sales, and sales is hard, there's a reason not a lot of people go into sales. Is one, it's hard. You're cold calling people. You're reaching out to people that probably don't want to hear from you, and that's a hard aspect of it. But it's a results driven profession and position where if you're not closing deals, you're in hot water. And frankly, if you're in sales, especially B2B sales, if you're not hitting quota, then there's a chance that you're going to get terminated or fired or whatever. So I don't disagree with you there. Here's where I think this company made a mistake, and where I think she has a legitimate argument. So just a little bit more detail about this. This person started late August and had a 3-month ramp. A 3-month ramp is basically you're giving someone 3 months to get up to speed. And typically it involves compensation, where they will provide a certain amount of compensation to adjust until you can get your commission up. So kind of the expectation is after that 3 months, you should be closing deals or close to closing deals. So if you take into account that 3-month ramp, starting at the end of August, this person only had September, October, and November really to get ramped up. So December is the first month of production. You better be selling. So I've been in sales in my career. I haven't sold enterprise software B2B. I did, however, work for 3 companies that did, and I was responsible for hiring salespeople. So I know what the expectations are. There are quotas, there are ramps, there are performance plans, there are activity expectations. So I have a pretty good understanding of what the job is like and what they're required to do. But finishing out that 3-month ramp, this person had December to start closing deals. December is traditionally a very challenging month to get deals closed, really for any sales, but I think especially for enterprise software sales, because one, a lot of people take time off. And when you're selling enterprise software, it's not just you reaching out to one person and one person saying, great, we're going to buy and I'll sign tomorrow. Now, it could be, I guess, but it's likely multiple stakeholders, multiple people have to sign off, finance, legal, any stakeholder in any department that might use this software. So it's complicated. And so going into December, you have a lot of people who take time off, and a lot of executives who are responsible for signing off on that deal are probably taking time off. And also we're asking, you know what, I've got a lot to do by the end of the year. Can we push this into the new year? So I think this person has a legitimate concern or beef when when this person says, "Hey, in December it was my first month, and the last week of December people take time off and deals notoriously get pushed, and so this was done in early January. So to me, it seems like this person was not given a fair shot at really proving themselves in sales because of being hired in late August, because of the 3 month ramp, because of December being really slow. And what's also going on right now, a lot of companies are tightening budgets, and most companies are just not selling as much as they were last year and the year before. So it's a very challenging time in enterprise sales and B2B enterprise sales. And so to me, it doesn't seem like a fair performance management decision. That's I would leave it there. I have more to add, but I'll let you respond to that.
So I muted myself, Jeff, just because we got a comment that there was an echo. So if you don't mind, maybe throwing yourself on mute. That'll also, of course, eliminate all the arguing we're about to do. Because I don't, I I'm sympathetic to people's individual situations. And again, there is a lot we don't know about this particular circumstance. At the same time, you have to expect that a technology and a mature technology company who has a fair bit of market share in their space has a pretty good idea of what good looks like when it comes to sales. I think don't we need to give the benefit of the doubt to an organization that's been there, done that when it comes to their people? And you know, 4 months, to your point, maybe isn't enough to say they should have had a deal closed. I can argue, or I can see your side of the argument when it comes to that, but there's a lot that goes into whether or not this individual is close, and we're talking about a third of a year. So yeah, December is the end of the road there, and I'll grant you that that's a tough month to close deals, but there's also pipeline generation. What did that look like? Was there pipeline for the new year? I suspect that if there was, there's no chance that they would let somebody go. And again, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to an organization here that I don't know a lot about. And I, certainly feel like there's, again, on your side of the argument, I can see where, it feels like perhaps they were couching this, we overhired into something else. But I just feel as if a mature organization who's done this before probably has enough data to recognize that, hey, we don't want to let go of people that could potentially be top performers. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever that they would do that unless they had a really good feeling based on a ton of different data points that this individual was not going to ultimately be successful at the company. Perhaps they gave her an opportunity to go somewhere else and be more successful. She perhaps just wasn't the best fit for them. So that's how I would respond to your argument when it comes to the time frame and the timing of the position. It's not ideal. It's not obviously super disappointing for her, but they had to have taken a bunch of things into consideration, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go off mute now and respond to that. So I think you make a valid point. This company, a successful company, has probably hired hundreds of salespeople. They know the profile, they know performance, they measure the numbers, they look at the metrics, they know exactly what they're looking for, and they know I'm sure that they have a very good idea of what the trends are in success. I don't doubt that. I think it's a valid point. In this instance, it does look like it may have been uh, they overhired, and instead of doing a RIF or a layoff where they had to pay out a severance, they did performance management instead. They have the right to do that, and maybe this is something they do on a consistent basis, and they're able to tell pretty clearly who are the top performers. Of course, those who are closing deals, but with someone who's newer, I guess that's really my issue is one, if it should have been a layoff, then my hope would be that you do it in a traditional layoff style and you provide a severance. I get that some companies can't do that. Um, I have worked for a couple of smaller companies who uh, were bringing in revenue, of course, but weren't highly profitable or even profitable, um, had funding, but could have made an argument to do performance management. And they made the decision to do a layoff and provide a severance because it was the right thing to do. And I think that's what people are upset about is it seems like it should have been that. Now we don't know for sure. So, and we're not naming any names, but that could have been what happened here. And if so, I think it's that company or any company's responsibility. If it's truly that you overhired and you need to cut payroll, then do it the right way, do it as a layoff, and provide a severance if you can. We can get into whether or not you should provide a severance, but it is becoming more and more commonplace, especially with the job market the way it is, the economy the way it is, and frankly, I think that's why this company has seen anger in response to this is because there are a lot of people who have been laid off and it's a really tough job market and there's inflation and people are struggling. So there's a lot of anger out there right now. And I think that's a big part of it. Um, but going back to, hey, this company, uh, they know exactly what they're looking for and they have a good idea. Uh, of what a successful salesperson is going to look like. Again, I think they have a valid point, but I don't think personally 3 months time is enough for anyone to prove themselves. I just don't. Um, Now, if they were measuring the numbers very closely and this person's pipeline was very low and they knew for sure, okay, it doesn't seem like that's what happened. And what seems to be that came out in this video is that the manager never had a conversation about this individual underperforming or not performing up to where they should have been. This person talked about their high activity level, about 3 days being close to closing. So um, again, I don't think it was handled in the right way, but I would still argue that I don't think 3 months is enough time for maybe anyone, but even a salesperson to prove themselves. Scotty, you and I are in sales and have been in sales and have worked for big companies before. I've worked with recruiters who are in a sales type role who started out really slow. I can think of 3 or 4 people that we worked with at our former company. I don't know if you want to name that company that I thought early on, I don't know if this person is ever going to produce. I just don't know. They were really struggled. And then and this might be unique to services or recruiting, but I think you could probably apply this to product sales, software sales. I saw with multiple people, 3 months in, 6 months, even 9 months in, where they got it, it finally clicked and they took off and they were awesome. And we were better for having patience with them and giving them the time to ramp up. Some people ramp up sooner than others. And as you and I know, sales is a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation, but it's also a little bit of luck. And sometimes you need a little bit of time so you can get some luck in sales.
I can tell you, I don't know if I'm going to make any new friends or even keep some of the friends that I have for arguing in the affirmative for this company. Um, and I think, again, I'll acknowledge some of those points as valid. You're not wrong. You and I are in this in effectively a sales job ourselves. We do know it's hard. Um, I believe that at the end of the day, what I'm ultimately arguing, so here's what I'll grant you. And I do want to actually, before I jump into this, I'd like to say, Kelly, if you are still watching, please send your comment to me via message. I can see the first part of your comment. It's very intriguing. I'd love to know more. If you're there, please send your comment to me via LinkedIn message so that I can pose it to Jeff and we can just discuss and debate it a little bit. Sounds like Kelly is agreeing with you, Jeff, is from what I can tell, but I'd like to, I'm sure it's very nuanced and I'm missing half of it at least. So
Which Kelly?
Kelly Brandon.
Oh,
Brandon?
okay. Hi, Kelly.
Um, I will grant you that when it comes to reputation management and when it comes to what I would argue is a hidden marketing campaign for every organization, which is your employee experience and also your candidate experience, these guys are probably falling flat. I don't disagree with that. I think what we're ultimately debating here is who is in the right. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not here to assassinate anyone's character. I do not know the individual who who spurred this debate and this conversation. But it's impossible to know all the details. It's so easy when you see one side of a story. And frankly, somebody who's going to record the conversation, perhaps there were other aspects of this individual's, overall performance and behavior on the job that we're not just not aware of. So I'm going to go back to, at the end of the day, you accept a job knowing you have a 3-month ramp. It was very clearly stated what the expectations were going to be for that ramp, and bad luck to end up your first month actually on the job being in December. But the company doesn't have to, again, whether or not they thought through the potential fallout from what they did, making this decision to do performance management in this case, I don't believe that they have to apologize for letting a salesperson go who hadn't closed any deals where the expectations were set clearly up front. That's the part that's the argument that I can confidently make. Could they have managed it a little bit differently? Could they have had said individuals, direct leader be involved? Of course they could have and should have. But at the end of the day, I don't think that it's a slippery slope when you start saying companies owe people. Let this company, like any other company in a free market, which we more or less have, let this company suffer the consequences of their decision, but don't say they can't make that decision. That's kind of where I'm landing when it comes to, how they handle this and what ultimately happens.
And I don't disagree that they should be able to handle it the way they want to, but they also have to pay the consequences of that. And to your point on, I don't know if it's a great look that this person recorded it and then posted it. Personally, I wouldn't do that. And this person is taking a risk by doing that because there might be hesitation from other companies in the future about hiring this person. I also understand where this person is coming from. Like, this is frustrating. I think this person really felt like they had put in a good amount of work, had worked their butt off, and this was unwarranted. And so, should this person have made the video? I think you can argue either way on that, but I don't blame them for being very frustrated, also for recording it and then posting it and saying, you know what, if this is the way that you're going to do performance management or layoffs or whatever, then you're going to have to pay the consequences of it. Like, I want to bring this in because I think it's relevant, but Glassdoor is the thorn in a side for a lot of people, especially people in recruiting. I spent the last 7 years in internal talent acquisition, and every single company I worked for, we talked about Glassdoor, our Glassdoor presence, what it looked like, what we could do to improve it. And at my last company before that, every position I've had in internal talent acquisition, it was a strategy for us. How do we improve our Glassdoor presence? And there's part of Glassdoor that I don't like, because it's an easy way for people who are frustrated in the moment to say, I hate this company. I loved this company for 2 years, and then when they laid me off, I hate this company, and I'm only going to do a review when I'm laid off. So I get that, and I get the bad side of Glassdoor, but I also actually kind of like it, and I like, because it's a way for some of the power in the job market to go into the hands of the individual, for them to say, okay, fine, if you're going to do this, I get that you can, but I'm going to voice how I feel about this. So Glassdoor is one way to do that. But outside of Glassdoor, where have people felt like they've had the opportunity to do this? And maybe with, and I'm going to sound, I guess, older by saying this, maybe with Gen Z, they're like, to hell with you guys. We're going to start recording these and put them all over the internet and on TikTok and LinkedIn or whatever. And I'm not saying that's a good thing to do, but I don't blame this person for people being really frustrated when they don't feel like uh, this was done maybe the way it should have been, and they feel like they have an honest argument against what happened. So that's what I would say about that.
All right, well, I'm sure we've solved most of the world's problems with regard to this debate.
Did Kelly send her comment to you?
She didn't, unfortunately. So again, I'll have to troubleshoot figuring out why I'm not able to actually monitor comments in real time, because it would appear that I am not. But I can guess, I believe, based on what I can see of her comment here, what she's trying to say. So this is how the comment starts. Oh, nope, I've got somebody else's comment. What I think Kelly was getting at is nobody should be let go for performance without having had multiple conversations leading up to it, right? I think what she's looking for is documentation, performance improvement plans, etc. And we can debate this. I think again, at the end of the day, where I'm ultimately coming down on this debate that I've assigned to myself to come down on is the company can do this however they want to do this when it comes to a salesperson that wasn't meeting their metrics. If we want to talk about best practices, though, I think there might be something to be said for what Kelly's comment actually says, I believe, which is that we ought to, nobody should ever be fired for performance without knowing that that's coming. So I'll be curious to see how you respond to that.
I agree with her, and I think this is part of the real value that HR provides, is making sure that holding managers and leaders accountable to that. I was fortunate, or I guess you might say unfortunate enough, for a short amount of time to lead HR for one of my former companies for a short amount of time, filling in, and I had to be a part of these conversations. It was a great learning experience, and I can tell you that one of the surprising things to me, I guess maybe not surprising, but it was surprising, is certain leaders, managers, some are really good about having direct conversations, and their people know exactly where they stand with performance. Others are not. And I was surprised how many people were surprised when we were either moving towards a PIP, a performance improvement plan, or actually moving towards a termination. And I know as a leader manager, sometimes people get frustrated when HR comes to them and says, "Where's your documentation? You've got to show me when you had this conversation. How many conversations did you have? Did you record it?" I know for some people that can be frustrating, but there is good reason for that. And it's because HR has been in a position where someone came to him and said, "Hey, I need to terminate this person." Okay, why? What have you done? What conversations have you had? Oh, yep, they know exactly that they're underperforming, and this is not going to be surprised. And then the HR person is sitting in the termination conversation, and the person is like, What are you talking about? I have never been told ever that I'm underperforming, which is a really bad, unfortunate position to be in. So HR serves a very valuable purpose in, hold on here a minute. I think maybe the most value they provide is putting the brakes on some leaders and making sure the leaders are doing things the right way, because it, of course, is going to keep companies safe legally, but it's also the right thing to do to make sure that everyone knows. And with this instance, I don't think the conversations had been had. We don't know that, but it doesn't look like they were. But Kelly is 100% right. The person should not be surprised. If you're moving towards a PIP or a termination, if it's done the right way, the person would say, "Yeah, this is not what I planned, but I understand. Scotty and I have had 3 conversations. He's been very clear with me, and I understand why we're having this conversation."
Really hard to argue against that, quite frankly.
I think we only have a few minutes left, so maybe we could get people to vote on our next topic of conversation. We could throw out a few possibilities and see what people want to
Well,
hear.
before we do that, Jeff, we had one more comment. This was actually from Patrick. So hey Patrick, if you're still watching. And again, the first the first half of this comment, I hope gives me ultimately the gist of it. But if what he's basically saying is, in sales, there's a strategy of hire slow, fire fast. And he said maybe the company saw this was not I think probably not the right fit for the job, et cetera, et cetera. Um, at the end of the day, that is something we hear, particularly for sales. Take your time, try and find the best people. But if you recognize that you have somebody that's not going to be the best fit, and again, we talked earlier about all the data points and a ton of information that we're lacking here, where we have to kind of go on faith that this company knows enough to know this person wasn't the right fit. She's given a third of a year to come up to speed, didn't do it. So fire fast. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, I think he's right that I've heard that quite a bit. Hire slow, fire fast. Um, I think there's value in that. Um, having been in recruiting as long as I have been, I could make the argument that even if you hire fast or if you hire slow, I'm not sure it makes that much of a difference, to be honest with you. Uh, because once you get someone in the, I've said this, as you know, Scotty, over and over again in my recruiting career. Predicting future behavior is almost impossible, right? Like I've pointed to the NFL draft as a perfect example of how hard recruiting is. I mean, NFL teams do hundreds of hours of research. They watch tape, they look at film, they watch every single game of a college prospect, they do references, they do tests, and they still get it wrong. They just do. So it's really hard. So but yes, I think back to Patrick's point, that is a legitimate strategy of hire slow, fire fast. And I do agree with the idea of, look, if someone's not working out and we truly believe someone is not working out, we should just rip the Band-Aid and be fair to them, but say, hey, this isn't working out. It's time for you to move on. I agree with that. My concern is that um, I don't think, I don't know. I would like to trend or lean more towards give someone as much runway as you need to really figure out if they're going to perform well. Because again, I've seen it firsthand where people started out slow and end up being awesome. And I've seen people start out fast and uh, puttering out and not doing well at all. So um, hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, no, I think that answers for me, where you're coming from on it, and at the end of the day, lest anyone be confused, we are arguing two sides of this debate. as an exercise. I don't necessarily agree with everything that I've said today, but I can see where a company is coming from when it comes to, in particular, a salesperson, when it comes to performance management and firing somebody because they didn't hold up their end of the bargain to an agreed upon set of metrics discussed 4 months prior. Now, having said that, to your point, Jeff, we mentioned that there are several topics we'd love to debate in the same style, where we each take one side and do our best to either be vilified, as I'm certain I will be after this conversation, or be held up as the standard bearer of the little guy, as Jeff will be after this conversation. I will make a comment on this post, and then perhaps we can get some people to weigh in on some of the additional topics we'd love to do in the future. Do you want to throw those out there right now on the live, Jeff, or should we just throw it in a comment? What do you think's best?
Yeah, the topics that we were thinking about, one I know that we had talked about is referrals and recruiting, and is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think most people probably think referrals are a great thing or a good thing, but I have heard from hiring leaders from different people in the industry that referrals actually aren't good and that you should shy away from referrals. I think we talked about referrals. We talked about resume. Is the resume dead? Do you even need to do a resume anymore? And then what was the third one that we were thinking about? Trying to remember.
Oh, dude, this is the best one, and that is return to the office.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right. That's right. Return to the office and the clash that's going on right now. Maybe that's the one we do next. Yeah.
Well, I'll put it in the comments. Please forgive me to those that made comments, particularly, Kelly, Patrick. I was unable to see your entire comment. I'm sure there was, again, a lot more to it than what we discussed. But I think we were obviously able to debate. People are going to weigh in. No matter how many times I can say that this was an exercise and we each decided to pick a side and argue for that, not necessarily representative of our own opinions. I'm sure that we'll get some comments about what we had to say, and perhaps people would even be willing to say who they think won the debate today. I can take it, you guys. So that being said, I will make a comment about those three options. If we don't hear from anyone, we'll kind of assume that everybody wants to hear about what you and I think about returning to the office, yes or no, and we can do that at a later to be determined date and time. So, any final words, Jeff, about this scenario that we discussed? I should say debated, or anything else?
No, I think we covered it. So I appreciate you arguing the other side. We'll see how we both come out on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. And for those of you who did join, really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Again, make sure you take a look at the comments here after we sign off and let us know what you want us to debate in future. All right. All the best.